How's it going, everybody? I know I'm a little late to the party with this one, but I can't not review Star Wars The Force Awakens. As opposed to the people who put reviews out hours after the movie was released, I have seen this movie 4 times in the theater now, and have had almost a month to let it sink in. So this will be an in-depth review and analysis as opposed to an initial reaction. First things first, yes, I am a huge Star Wars fan, have been for as long as I can remember. I'm of a certain age where I grew up with and loved the original trilogy, but wasn't old enough to be immediately critical of the prequels when they first came out. It's hard to spot a bad script and wooden acting performances when you're like 10 years old. However, as the years have passed, and as I have tried rewatching the trilogy over and over again, the flaws are just too noticeable to ignore. When J.J. Abrams took on directing The Force Awakens, in my opinion, he had one job: right the ship. Give us a Star Wars movie that I can show to my kids in 15 years that won't make me cringe. A movie that will have sentimental value to the people who grew up on the original trilogy, while at the same time opening the door for a new generation of fans. If you hold The Force Awakens to that standard, it succeeds, and I really don't have time for the people who try to say that it isn't a good movie. You can take issue with certain aspects of it, sure. I personally have some problems with it that I'm going to get into during this video. But the fact of the matter is, for the first time, in my lifetime at least, we have been given a Star Wars movie that will stand the test of time. So let's start at the beginning. The crawl of this movie was perfect. Right when I read the first line, "Luke Skywalker has vanished," a wave of relief just rushed over me. By now, all Star Wars fans are familiar with the infamous prequel crawls that mention trade negotiations and shit. This crawl was handled with such care, and it did the job of easing at least my worries before the movie had even really begun. The first scene of the movie stars Max von Sydow and Oscar Isaac, and the first line spoken basically declares what JJ was planning on doing with this movie. Max von Sydow's character says, "This will begin to make things right." When I heard that Max von Sydow had been cast in this movie, I was so excited, which makes his part in this movie one of its flaws. After seeing movies like The Seventh Seal and The Exorcist, I just feel like he was seriously underutilized. I mean, maybe we'll get a deleted scene or two with him, or learn some backstory about who he was later on, but for now, it's kind of a disappointment. But anyway, we get this scene where the First Order comes down to this village on Jakku. Kylo Ren comes out and we get his first interaction with Poe Dameron, where they both just stare silently at each other until Poe breaks the tension with a joke. "Who talks first? You talk first, I talk first." Like the crawl, this was one of the moments that set the tone for what was to come. The script wasn't cheesy. These were flawed, funny, and real characters that we didn't get in the prequel trilogy. We also get a first look at Finn during this scene. Now, I hadn't seen John Boyega in anything prior to the casting list of The Force Awakens being released. In preparation of the movie, I watched Attack the Block, and I really enjoyed it. I think that he knocked it out of the park in this role, especially when you consider he's having to put on an American accent for the entire movie. At press conferences and stuff, they always talked about how Finn was a unique character, unlike anything we've ever seen in Star Wars before. I agree, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where they take his character in episodes 8 and 9. Now we meet the character Rey, played by Daisy Ridley, who was even more of an unknown than John Boyega. The pressure on these two actors was crazy, but they both delivered. I love all of the scenes with just Rey and BB-8 alone. Everything about BB-8, right down to the sort of swaying that he does when he's not moving, makes this droid such a dynamic character in the movie. I know it's blasphemy against R2, but BB-8 might have taken the top spot as my favorite droid. Finn and Poe's escape from the First Order Star Destroyer was great. These two actors had such good on-screen chemistry, and their whole sequence provides a lot of action and funny bits of dialogue between the two. The next sequence, with Finn and Rey running from the First Order, kept up the fast pace of this movie, and the whole garbage Millennium Falcon reveal was one of my favorite moments in the entire film. So I'm going to be skipping around a little bit, but basically everything about Han Solo's involvement in this movie worked for me. It wasn't just fan service, I think it was the best way to bring these new characters into the world we know and love. The reveal that Kylo Ren is actually the son of Han Solo was handled really well. You can't have another "I am your father" moment. It would have been predictable. So I'm glad that they revealed it early on in the movie, with Snoke saying, "Oh yeah, by the way, they're with your dad, Han Solo," just kind of in an offhand way, and didn't draw it out. The relationship between Kylo and General Hux is interesting, but I can't help but feel like Donald Gleason kind of overacted the character. Not taking a swipe at his acting abilities, I'm a huge fan, which is probably why I was kind of let down by the fact that he was just a cookie-cutter bad guy. This is really only a problem because he's standing next to Kylo Ren, played by Adam Driver, and wow, I can't say enough about his performance in this movie, and the way the character was handled. So I'll just say that Kylo Ren is my favorite part of this movie. Purists will say Vader is the best villain, but Kylo was so much more. He was a confused, vulnerable, unstable person that people can actually relate to and sympathize with, not just a bad dude in a mask. So now I guess we have to talk about Snoke, who has become kind of controversial because why make him CGI? And from what we've seen of him so far, which isn't much, I can't help but agree. I think that Andy Serkis could have played this part with makeup, and it wouldn't have seemed out of place. The CGI characters in this movie only stick out like a sore thumb because of the lengths that JJ went to use practical effects and sets. This brings us to Maz Kanata, the other CGI character in the movie. I liked the design of the character, I liked Lupita Nyong'o's motion capture performance, but again, it sticks out like a sore thumb, despite being really high quality CGI. And the whole Maz just having Luke's lightsaber that he lost on Bespin part kind of bugged me. I get that we don't want the heavy exposition of the prequel trilogy, but I think this should have been fleshed out a little more. So there's the exposition I wanted, here's the exposition that I didn't need. Leia talking to Han and explaining how their son was corrupted by Snoke and turned to the dark side. Yeah, I got all that just from watching the movie, and upon multiple viewings, this dialogue is kind of prequel-esque. After Maz's castle, we get this scene of Kylo interrogating Rey. He takes off his mask for the first time in the movie, and we see his face. I've heard people say they didn't like this, but it totally worked for me. We see this young, unscarred face and just know that he's not all the way gone just yet. The way that they let Kylo be just a normal guy when he took his helmet off was a great choice in my opinion. Again, it's helping to build empathy with this character, which leads us to the most important scene of the movie. Now, this is the part of the movie where you get in trouble if you spend the year ahead of the release speculating and reading rumors. If you're like me, you saw Han Solo's death coming from a mile away. But surprisingly, even though I knew it was going to happen, the moment wasn't ruined for me. When Han yells Ben, and we realize that Kylo was named after Obi-Wan, that was such a great moment. And again, Kylo takes off his helmet before killing his father. This scene was heartbreaking, mostly because of the moment when Han touches Ben's face just before falling, and because of Chewie's reaction. God, Chewie's reaction killed me. And I love that when he shot at Kylo with his bowcaster afterwards, he actually hit him. Not like Han when he shoots at Vader in Empire. Chewie shooting Kylo is important, because it puts Kylo at a disadvantage for his fight against Finn and Rey. People say Finn gets his ass handed to him, but honestly, someone who isn't showing the same level of force sensitivity as Rey, and who has had the lightsaber for about 1 day, he holds his own pretty well, and actually clips Kylo in the shoulder before getting taken out of the fight. An important detail that most people seem to have missed is that when Finn is about to leave Maz's castle and sees the Starkiller weapon shooting through the sky, he hears the cries of all the people dying, just like Obi-Wan did in A New Hope. Yes, Finn's purpose in this movie was as a red herring to take our attention off of the possibility that Rey was the Jedi, but I wouldn't count him out just yet. I would bet money on Finn becoming a Jedi also. All in all, this lightsaber fight will probably go down as one of my favorites. It was real and dirty. They weren't dancing with each other, they were trying to kill each other. It wasn't overly choreographed like the prequel fights, and it wasn't boring like the fight in A New Hope. So the big cliffhanger of this movie is Rey's lineage. Most people assume that Luke is her father, and while it is heavily implied, I would refer you back to Finn's role in this movie and realize that Disney clearly isn't afraid of misleading the viewers. I won't count out the possibility of Luke being Rey's father, but I personally prefer the theory that Rey is the granddaughter of Obi-Wan. We know that an Obi-Wan standalone movie is rumored, and I think that if my theory turned out to be true, the story of what took place in Obi-Wan's life between episodes 3 and 4 would become very important. We now know that Ewan McGregor, who played Obi-Wan in the prequel trilogy, provided some voiceover for Rey's flashback scene in the movie. It might be a long shot, but I would personally prefer Rey being a Kenobi to a Skywalker. So that wraps up my thoughts on The Force Awakens. It should come as no surprise that I really enjoyed this movie, and for all the reasons given in this video, I am going to give Star Wars The Force Awakens a 92%. Thanks for watching, leave a like if you did, subscribe for more, and I'll see you next time.